All right. All right. Thanks, Chris. I appreciate you being here. We're live right
Yeah,
now.
man.
Um, I got I got you here on a discussion about, your military experience. You're also an author. And you was in the US Army and the Air Force.
That's
And you're
correct.
also have Native American blood.
Yeah.
So that's very interesting. So before we start, basically just plug yourself in and where people can find you at and stuff.
Yeah, on social media, you can find me on YouTube at Swamp Fox Soldier. Uh, all three words all run together. The same handle on Twitter. So I'm on X as Swamp Fox Soldier as well. Um, and let's see, Facebook, you can find me by my pen name, which is C period Elmon Meade. Um, and there's a story behind that pen name. I wanted to take my great grandfather's first name and my mom's maiden name, and that's how I came up with my pen name. And the C stands for Chris, which is my real name. But the book that I just released, because it's about my tribe, the history of my tribe, I use my real name along with the pen name because name recognition means everything to tribes. For instance, the Cherokee tribe, if you say I'm with the Ross family or the Watts family, that's how people identify you. And it's a lot of the same uh, ways of identification for the tribes I belong to on the East Coast.
Okay, so and that when I first ran into you, you was promoting your book, and it's pretty interesting because I like talking to people who are authors who wrote books and stuff like that, shared their information, their knowledge, and
Yeah.
you have a lot of you have a lot of understanding of history. And you have a great channel. Like I said, you was in the Air Force,
Yep.
so it's pretty cool. But let me ask you something. What made you write your first book? Because from when I first met you, it was one book. Now you told
Yeah.
me it's five.
Yeah. The book that I just published is the history of the Coharie Tribe. But right there on the top of that screenshot you have there for Twitter or X, you see two books that I wrote. My first book and my second book. The first book is the Demagogue Wars, and then I wrote Adam and Eve's Ashes after that one. And Adam and Eve's Ashes is my bestseller, and the Demagogue Wars is my award winner. The Demagogue Wars actually won, and it's a pretty large novel. It's 460 pages, broken down into three acts. Set off way in the future, dystopian future. The world is at war. America's splintered. China's trying to take over, and it's basically like an end times novel. That's how I wrote it, and it gets in all these futuristic avenues, the proliferation of missile technology, hypersonic missiles, hypersonic vehicles. They've taken quantum computing and turned it into quantum warfare. We have biological warfare that targets specific genes, like CRISPR warfare, basically.
Mhm.
It's very futuristic, and that's why it was in a sci-fi category for that UK blog where I won the award. Um, and Adam and Eve's Ashes actually is about magnetic pole shift and solar flares or solar events. Think of a CME, like um, we just Carrington event. We just had the anniversary of the Carrington event a couple of days ago. That was went back in 1859 when sun unleashed a huge solar flare and all the telegraph lines burned up. And telegraph operators were getting electrocuted even after they unplugged the telegraph. I mean, it was a huge solar flare. And today, if that solar flare was to hit us, we'd be looking at blackouts everywhere. Um, and that obviously brings about a whole bunch of problems, supply chain, just the fact that everything you and I are talking right now in different states, that's how we do our commerce now. Everything's through the internet. We are totally dependent on electricity. So I wrote that book, and I give a lot of credit to Ben Davidson of Suspicious Observers. I follow him pretty closely and got most of my education about this magnetic pole shift and solar micronova and other solar events just by following his channel. And I got turned on during the COVID shutdown to uh, Chan Thomas's book that was at one point it was made secret or top secret by the CIA. and then it just came to light recently. And he talks about solar event, and it includes stuff like Earth crustal displacement theory from Charles Hapgood, where basically when you go and read old texts, whether it's the Book of Enoch or the Torah, it talks about the world turns over. Well, that's a real thing if the sun attacks us, because we have this cyclic disaster cycle that we're in, and there's no like denying this. I mean, scientists can go to different lava beds all over the earth and confirm that this is happening, because lava actually has a way to lock in magnetism when it cools and hardens. So it leaves striations that you can see under a microscope that can tell you which way was the magnetic pole oriented in that location at that time when it froze. And then scientists, geologists primarily, can go back and say, okay, this lava bed is X number of years old. So we know the magnetic pole was facing this way 6,000 years ago. And today it's not facing this way, it's facing this way. So magnetic pole flipped or moved or something. You know, right now our poles are moving. They're actually accelerating, which is kind of scary. But yeah, that book gets into that. I basically take what take what Chan Thomas had in his book, Adam and Eve. Oh my goodness, I can't remember the title of it right now. It's Adam and Eve story, I believe. And he was trying to be cute with the name. That's why he called it Adam and Eve story. But he talks about the last time this happened, when the poles flipped and we lost our magnetic shield because of the flip. Because we lose the magnetic shield for a little while and then it pops back, right? Well, during that window, when it's open, we are susceptible to all this sun proton storms and X-rays from coronal holes, and CMEs can like knock us out. And so the last time that happened, a wall of water came across from the Pacific and slammed the West Coast. And the tidal wave was so high that it came over the Rocky Mountains. I mean, and say what you will about different religions and cultures and whatnot, but the Noah event is what they call that. It happened about 6,000 years ago. And scientists have been able to go to a lava bed in China and confirm this event taking place, and they call it the Tianqi event. So for those who aren't into the religious thing, you don't have to call it the Noah events. Scientists have confirmed this happened. We had a global flood. Yeah. And even Native American cultures, they talk about the global flood. You know, they went underground, just like people in Turkey went underground in Cappadocia.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. Yeah, the ant people. That's what I was going to say.
Exactly. Yes, that's right.
That's interesting because, you know, I always say this, you know, the question a lot of people ask is, you know, how does all the civilizations have the same flood story? And one of the ways that I come up with the answer is the fact that because every civilization started by a body of water, maybe not in that lifetime or somebody's lifetime, in that family's lifetime, generations from now, there's going to be a flood. And what do you usually do when there's a flood coming? Well, you usually pack up your most important things. And because livestock was very important at that time, of course, they packed animals. Yeah, they say two things of everything because you can't reproduce animals if you let one of them die, right? So if you're going to bring anything on your boat or ark, you should call it, or what they called it, you're going to bring you know, a male and a female of each animal that you need. I know a lot of people say that it says that in the Bible that it was all of the animals of the world. It was all animals of that person's world. What made that person's world? You know, a lot of people hear the word world, and they think it's like, you know, a specific thing when it's subjective to the person.
Yeah, I don't, you know, piggyback on what you're saying. I don't necessarily think that Noah had to take a llama on board the ark. He could have. I don't know. Maybe the world back then, continents were a little closer. I don't know. Maybe the llamas he took on the ark died off. But the llamas in South America, who's to say they were on Viracocha's boat? You know? Who's to say they weren't on Quetzalcoatl's boat if you're in Mexico? Or insert other hero name here. Whoever the Black Sea had is their hero that helped bring the earth back, because that happens in every story, you know. And I see that as like God's emissaries. I mean, that's how I view it. And it's like each culture tells it a little different. Well, they have the essence of what took place. We know the Noah event happened. It's in the geological record. It's in the magnetic record.
So yeah, but you say global, like the water was higher than it was before, basically, right? That's basically what you're saying. Like, so put it like I guess how I'm understanding it is that we know that the Sumerian civilization isn't the oldest civilization because most of the civilizations that we know of are still underwater, and we can't really,
I think there could have been multiple events that were just as bad as the Noah event, or worse, or way, way, way worse. Like, people, the popular thing right now is like people talk about when the Sahara was green. We know that happened. Like, there's a pollen record there. Pollen don't just pop up in the desert. Like, we know that the Sahara was green at one point. Well, who's to say that the Sahara wasn't like green desertification, green desertification, green desertification? Like, it could have happened.
Yeah, go back and forth.
Over and over again. And a Noah-sized flood could have happened over and over again, like every 6,000 years. Who's to say? We don't know. That's why I try to keep an open mind about like how are the ziggurats built, and is there anything to the fact that ziggurats are basically the same shape as a pyramid in Egypt? Lots of similarities. You look at ley lines. There's all kinds of cool stuff that's lays across ley lines around the center of the earth. It's like, how is that? I don't know. I don't think modern science has all the answers. I think a lot of stuff is still yet to be discovered. I really do.
Well, I personally believe that science catches up with people's theories and ideas. You come up with an idea and a theory first before you come up with the science to prove it. Right. Yep. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I forget the guy who came up with plate tectonics and the fact that the continents can drift. And he was called a quack and a kook. And then you just give it a few decades and a whole lot of scientists looking into it. And lo and behold, there is such thing as a continental drift. Like that happens time and time again.
Yeah. And it's because like I said, it's all about, having an idea on how to prove it. Because, how can you prove that there's a continental drift? Somebody might say, hey, well, by mathematical equations, it's this way, but some people won't agree with your mathematical equations.
Right.
And then you actually have to wait till it's almost in an abundance to get a realization of what just happened.
Yeah, the way that was explained to me was that they give the United States Navy credit for that. So after World War II, our submarine fleet expanded, and the U.S. Navy, the Department of the Navy, got really serious about mapping the ground underneath our oceans. And so they're out in the Atlantic, and they see the continental separation there at the trench. And that's what basically said, wait, there's striation marks here. Like these places really are moving away from each other. And that's kind of what like got the ball started with all the, the endowment funds giving money to different universities and colleges to go research this stuff. And then, like you're saying, as all the different institutions and universities started getting their research in, it was just an overwhelming amount of evidence and data. Like, no, this is real.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying, that science catches up with the theories and ideas of, somebody saying, and it usually comes from somebody trying to bring attention to something else. I want to ask you this question because you said you have Native American blood in you, and just recently I've been having maybe about 2 or 3 discussions about NAGPRA. So you're familiar with NAGPRA, right?
I've heard that before. What is that? North American.
The NAGPRA is for the Native American Graves and Protection and Repatriation Act.
Yes.
And there are some people saying that they disagree with how NAGPRA is handling it, and some people are saying that they're handling it just fine. So basically, it's the artifacts are given to the tribes themselves,
right?
And they're responsible for doing what they need to do with it, and the science is no longer able to, distinguish, the genetic codes and all this other stuff, and the artifacts has to be given permission to be shown and stuff like that. How do you feel about that?
I get why the hesitancy from the different tribes. I really do. I think it's unfortunate. I think it's sad. I think it blunts our ability to do robust research when we have people gatekeeping something that, in my mind, it kind of belongs to all of us, right? Like, it would be the same if it was tribes in Africa or if it was Celtic tribes in Eastern Europe, right? Like, I want to know all that stuff. I want to know about the Yamyani, or I'm probably not even pronouncing that right, the ancient tribe in the middle of Europe that walked across Europe and populated all of Europe. I want to know about those guys. But the way the tribes were treated over here, unfortunately, people gained access to DNA for like genetic testing through I don't know, means that were not on the up and up. So they have a data bank somewhere where they were testing people for tuberculosis, for instance. And then they would keep their DNA forever because they signed off on a piece of paper saying that they could. And then that university, I'm not going to name any names, I know exactly which university it is, they come up with this human genome. Let's tag on to the Human Genome Project in Oxford. They're like, oh, we already have this DNA here from the Navajo tribe. And so then they would go and take those DNA samples, which were set aside for asthma studies, tuberculosis studies, diabetes studies, and they just went and used it for something totally different. And then, of course, the tribes are pretty ticked off about that because that was not the intention. And that was not how they were sold on signing away their genetic rights. And then that opens the door to the tribes coming under all these crazy expectations from bad players. I'll just say that, whether they're political, economic, folks who, try to, it's stuff that goes all the way back to eugenics, man. It's just not good stuff. I've heard horror stories about, I'm a member of the Coharie Tribe because that's who I'm enrolled with. So I'm a member of the Coharie Tribe, but I've got just as much Lumbee blood in me as I do Coharie blood. I've also got Tuscarora Indian and Cherokee in me. And this actually is a shirt from the Lumbee Warriors Association. I'm a member of the veterans group for the Lumbee Tribe, even though I'm enrolled with the Coharie Tribe. But our tribes are like this, man. We're both Siouan tribes here in Eastern North Carolina. And really the difference between us is just a matter of geography. If you live in Harnett County or Sampson County, you're Coharie. If you live in Scotland, Hope, Cumberland, Robeson County, you're Lumbee. That's all it is, man. It's no different than like how the Lakota, Nakota, Dakota, Sioux out west, they split off in little clans. It's called where they live. The Hunkpapa are here, the Oglala are here. It's just, that's all it is. But then you get folks coming in saying, oh, we got DNA tests. And now we want to, like, I've heard a horror story from the chairman of the Lumbee tribe about them coming down there to like measure people's noses and measure if, like, can you stick a pencil in someone's hair and it stay there? Like, what kind of crazy mess is this, man? So yeah, I get why tribes are pissed about their DNA being stolen for stuff that they didn't intend it to be, and what that's led to is it's led to this black hole and I know this because I've been studying, I write about this in my book. It's the last chapter. I talk about DNA in depth, and I use my DNA to talk about it. But so many tribes have a moratorium right now. They've told their tribe members, do not take DNA tests. And that doesn't help anyone, man. This knowledge that we were trying to get at, whether it's a human migration story, the ability to fight diseases, herd immunity is a real thing, in case you guys didn't know. And I've always wondered, like, why is Ebola only in West Africa? Is somebody doing that mess? Like, why is it always in West Africa? Why ain't it anywhere else? Maybe it's because there's genes there that are ancient, archaic genes because out of Africa, right? Maybe there's something to our genome that we need to get at to better protect these people. You know what I'm saying? Like, who's to say there ain't some of that going on here? Like, remember what was it, SARS virus that was in Canada? Only people in Canada were getting it. Like, what the heck is that? I even saw a theory on that one that it came down on a space rock because they had no idea what it was. Turns out it was a type of a coronavirus, SARS virus that hit Toronto so bad. But yeah, man, I think a biggest part of me would love to see a big museum go up in Sampson County for the Coharie Tribe, and for us to get all of our stuff back and put it in that museum. I would love that, and it would be something for everyone to enjoy and learn from. It's just a tricky situation. It's been made worse by politics and just not being upfront and open with what people were doing in academia. Okay, not people like you and me, but academia messed up, and it's got that bad vibe, like the Tuskegee experiment. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just feels wrong.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of people, I known about it, but I think for the last few months I've been digging a lot more into it. I visited plenty of places of Native American grounds. I've been to Rock Eagle Mound, Rock Hog Mound, been to uh, Pilot Mountain. I've been
Did you
to
happen to go to the Indian Creek, or the Town Creek Indian Mound? It's south of Pilot Mountain.
no, I haven't, but I will next year though. I
Yeah,
will.
hey, we'll hook up, man. I'll take you.
All right, yeah,
I write
definitely.
about the Town Creek Indian Mound in my book, because I purposely did a visit there when I was writing my book. I had got kind of stuck. You get writer's block. I think all authors talk about getting writer's block. And I was in a moment of writer's block. And I was like, I need some inspiration, man. And I live an hour away from this Indian mound. I've never been there. So I'm going to go. And I just went down there for the day. And man, it opened the floodgates. I finished my book in like 2 months. I only had half of it written, and I finished the other half of it in like 2 months after that visit.
Yeah, I'll definitely be there next year because like I said, I'll be there for the Cosmic Summit.
Yeah, I'll make sure to attend next year. I know it was in Asheville, and then it was in Greensboro. I'm hoping it'll be in Greensboro again. It'd be nice. I'm right next to Greensboro.
Oh yeah, well yeah, because I think it took like maybe an hour to drive to Pilot Mountain from where I was at, but I was
Yeah,
also
that's right. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, and you said the other one is south of that. So how
Yeah,
far
it's in
do
a
you think
town
that's
called
about?
Mount Gilead in Montgomery County. So I'm in Davidson County. Montgomery County is just south of me. Um, it's a cool little drive, man. There's a American bison farm out there. It's gorgeous, man. It's beautiful. I guess it's some rich dude decided to buy a bunch of bison. I don't know, but it's so awesome, man. You come around this little country road curve, right? Like a black snake. It's so curvy. And then you come to a stop sign at a T intersection, and you look, there's this giant hill, this house on top of it, and there's just nothing but American bison everywhere. It's so cool.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to definitely make my way up there. Like I said, I like to go to different places, and I was telling you this before we started. And I like to visit these local places because we have a lot of history behind us. But you was mentioning like archaic and ancient and stuff like that. So you know about the Sumerians then, right?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
What? Okay, so of course you will know about the Anuna / the Anunnaki. Then, what's your take on
And
them and where they came from?
I don't know. I haven't done a lot of reading in the Anunnaki. I'm more of an Atlantis guy. I've always been infatuated with Atlantis, like ever since I was a little kid, because my grandmother had a Reader's Digest. They had a story about Atlantis. And ever since then, I was just like fascinated by it. And I was like, were the Atlanteans Greek? And then as I got older and started learning more about my people, I was like, were the Atlanteans Native American? Like, all kinds of crazy questions about Atlantis I still have. The Anunnaki is intriguing, but I don't know that I know a whole lot about it. And I kind of, when I was doing that Atlantis thing, researching in that, I happened to come across two Australian guys, a podcast that they have, and they were talking about the Anikutani. And I was like, what? And turns out that's a Cherokee priesthood clan, or it was a Cherokee priesthood clan. And I was like, Anikutani, that kind of sounds like Anunnaki. And I got to researching it, and Anikutani is like basically like the Levites of Israel, because the Levites were the priesthood clans in Israel or Judea. And so the Anikutani were the same thing to the ancient Cherokee. We're talking about thousands of years ago, like way, 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 way before Trail of Tears. Think about like 1600s or something. Well, I forget the date. I had the date in my book. The Cherokee people kind of band together because members of the Anikutani clan, because the Cherokees use a clan system. They have 7 clans. At one point, they had 12. 5 of them are considered lost. They still have 7 clans to this day. Well, the Anikatani clan was their own priesthood clan, but they were accused of doing away with the traditions, taking back up the tradition of human sacrifice, because there's an origin story that says that the Cherokee came from Central and South America. So they did human sacrifice just like the Maya, Aztec, all them guys. Well, the Anikatani supposedly wanted to bring it back. And then the final kicker was one of the heroes of, I forget, I think it was the Wolf Clan. He went away to battle, and when he came back, he found out that his wife was raped by Anikatani. And so that was the last straw. Then the hero banded all the other clans together, and they eradicated the Anikatani, totally killed them off, like completely. And so that kind of like got me, that's really what got me looking into the Anunnaki a little more, like Enki and Enlil and all them guys. So I was like trying to find similarities or commonalities, and I really couldn't. That could just be my own ignorance of not truly, totally understanding that. But I know the Sumerians have their own flood story. We're talking about the Noah event. They would call it the Utnapishtim event, probably. Because they have Gilgamesh, and they talk about a flood event that happens in their part of the world as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's why I brought it up, because you like history, you enjoy history. I was looking up the Anikatani, and that's Anikutani, right?
Yep. Yeah, in Cherokee,
okay, so
Ani just means clan of or people of. I don't remember what Katani means, but I know it's the priesthood clan.
Yeah, so it's funny that you brought that up, because I was trying to find, when you type that in Google, you won't really find anything.
Nope.
But I went to JSTOR, or JSTOR, I think it's JSTOR, JSTOR.
Yeah.
It's a peer-reviewed article website that I like to use, and I found it in there.
Yep.
They actually have the question is, who were the Anikatani? And then the title is an excursion into Cherokee historical thought. It's by Raymond D. Fogelson from the University of Chicago. And I'll just read the abstract real quick. It says, evidence assembled and examined in this article reviews a prehistoric revolt by the Cherokees against a priestly class or hereditary clan, the Anikatani, whose members, according to legend, were massacred in a public uprising in response to their corruption and sexual improprieties. Some evidence relates the Anikatani to the historic Cherokee clan, the Anigilo. I think that's what you said, right?
Gahilo, that would be the twisted clan of today's Cherokee. Yeah. And it's pretty interesting. I don't know if you know of Barry Fale. He's a New Zealander who worked. He was a professor at Harvard for the longest time. Barry Fale has got some amazing stuff that you might be interested in reading. But he talks about that Ani Kahili or Kahilo clan, and how that word has Polynesian roots. And if you look even closer and you expand the table out, it also has roots to Doric Greek. And so it gets into all these other questions about, okay, do we really know the whole story about the American migration of Native Americans? And my answer to that, and a lot of my relatives who I've talked with, they agree with me. No, we do not. Clovis first is just an option. It's not the true story. Like, there's more than one way for us to come over here and populate this place. Even Native American tribes themselves have said so. And I think now with the Human Genome Project being completed, and there's been so much research truncated off of that and basically put into, its own little groups, like people just focusing on Y DNA studies, focus on just mitochondrial DNA studies, focus on autosomal DNA studies. We're able to tease out all this information that says, that may be something to this. Who's to say there wasn't a southern route the Polynesians came across? We don't. You can't say definitively there wasn't, because we don't know. We just don't know.
It could be a possibility. Two things could have happened. They could have came over the ocean, and they could have came over the Bering Strait, and they could have possibly came somewhere else too. There could be a third, fourth, and fifth one, right?
Yep.
Um,
Yeah, I read about
let
the
me.
Anacotani on page 43 of my book. And it said, legend has it that the Anacotani turned from the old ways, embraced human sacrifices, and engaged in sexual improprieties. That was just a sterile way for me to say the hero got his wife raped by a bunch of dudes, and then he went buck wild crazy and killed them all with the help of all the other clans.
Yeah. You know, okay, so because this is where it's interesting. A lot of people say, and I've heard this argument that the Native Americans, they were very peaceful people. I've read that every you can't, how can I say it? You can't stereotype a whole group of people just because of a small group of
I
people.
mean, you can, people do it all the time, but
Yeah,
you shouldn't.
but yeah, you shouldn't, right? And it's because you're always going to have a good and a bad, right?
Yes.
It's just what it is.
And that is a
And
very native way of looking at it too. I mean, it's kind of like who's my man that people give credit to for George Lucas writing Star Wars. I can't remember his name. He had a something, a saying. It was something like, all the heroes, all the villains, all the hells are within us, or something like that. You know what I'm talking about?
um,
And I mean, I think that's true, man. It's the yin and the yang, the good and the bad, the dark, the light. Like, it's all there. It's all potentially there. And you cannot. I saw another saying on a military site I follow, which I thought was really cool. It says something effective. You cannot be a peaceful man unless you're capable of violence, because
yeah,
only
you
by
can't.
witnessing and living violence do you know what peace is.
Yeah,
That hits home with me, man. I served in 2 combat zones, so
yeah,
you know, I get it. Like, I didn't join the army to go kill a bunch of people. I joined the army for different reasons. But when push came to shove, if we had to, man, you better believe it, I'm going home. Like, I ain't
yeah,
punching out
you
today. I don't send you
yeah,
home
you gotta do
with a
what you
body
gotta do.
bag.
Yeah, and you know it's so crazy that you bring that up because you talk about religion, and I'm going through this book right. Oh shoot, it's not even this one. It's another one. I just finished it actually, but it was basically a book about violence in religion
Mm,
and why is it sometimes necessary, and
yeah.
of course why it's not necessary and why you shouldn't do it. And one of the first things that it talks about, and I think I just posted it. Let me see. I think I just posted it not too
I
long
did
ago.
see that. You did. I saw that. Something about
Killing
violence
for
in order
food.
to eat.
Yeah, killing. Yeah, it was killing for food is the only form of killing that makes biological sense. Life must be destroyed to sustain life. God has made it impossible to be preserved without harming another being.
Yeah,
And that's
I
what it
was
was talking
thinking
about.
long and hard about that, man. Because even, I mean, even if you're eating a head of lettuce, that's a living thing, you
Yeah,
know?
and that was one of the other things that it was talking about
Yeah, I saw that
was
earlier.
that they talk about even if it's hurting a plant, you're committing violence against something else. So that's the only reason why it's biologically makes sense. But then it also goes into now when you place religion in um, with religion and its I guess its own moral codes like the Ten Commandments and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Um, why violence may be needed, right? Is it needed to stop something from happening or continuing to get worse? If that's why they have assassinations and stuff like that. And it's just interesting because since the beginning of man, since trading at least, or what we know as trading, when they started writing down in their writing systems, that's always been a thing, right? Like cannibal. That's why in the Bible, in certain parts of the Bible, it tells you not that cannibalism is bad, but
yeah,
people from all over have practiced it in one way or another,
yeah,
whether it was because it was the last thing that they could possibly have to keep themselves afloat, to keep themselves going, or whether it was because they felt like that eating your enemy's flesh was taking and consuming everything they had, and that's how you gained their soul. I mean, there was so many different ways.
Yeah.
And I think that's just very interesting to me, just for the simple fact that, we have our own different ways. And the reason why I say that is because I bring this up a lot. Um, I when I read the Strong Concordance, or when I read the Bible, I should say, there are words in there that I want to know what they mean, right? And manna is one of them. Manna was one of
Yeah.
them. What is manna, right? Everybody says they don't know what manna is. They have their theories. It's supposed to be a bread-like substance, blah 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 blah. You get these little
Mhm.
codes and ideas. Well, I learned that the Strong Concordance is something that you will reference when you need help. It's just like with a dictionary, right? If you need help with a
Yeah.
word, you go to a dictionary. When you look up the word manna in the Strong Concordance, you will see that it's in relation to what a man is. So basically, manna was man.
Hmm.
So when you substitute manna for man, it was man that was supplied. The question is, okay, well, it tasted like bread like substance. Well, bread like substance at that time, bread just didn't mean bread in bread loaf or flour dough or whatever you want to call it. Bread meant just like Adam meant mankind. It meant many different words. So when somebody said bread in that time, they could have just been saying food in general. How we use the word
Right.
food, they just use the word bread. And tastes like bread like substance. Um, that's up to interpretation, right? It's not everybody likes steaks and not everybody like chicken wings, right?
Yes.
So
Yes. I've not heard that before.
yeah,
The Strong's Concordance, that's for Greek translation. Is that correct? Or is it
yeah,
Greek and
that's
Hebrew?
it's the translations from the Hebrew and the Aramaic. So it's
Aramaic.
basically
Okay.
telling you what the words are, what I mean, what they mean, and at least at its origins. Like me, I like the etymology dictionary because I like
Yeah.
to understand what the words meant in its first original form, not what it's been modified to fit a new narrative that just came out. I like to understand what the word began in the first place and see how it changed and evolved to what it is today.
Yeah.
And that was one of them, manna, because a lot of people say, what is manna? And, one of the basic questions is, okay, well, how do I find out what manna is? Where do I look up that word at to figure out where it's at? Well, I can't use a regular dictionary because it's not in the dictionary, but it is in the Strong Concordance, which is the dictionary of the Bible.
Yeah. I know Polynesians use the word manna quite a bit. They talk about manna like it's everyday part of their language. Uh, like I used to follow The Rock on social media, and he would always talk about manna, and Tulsi Gabbard always talks about manna. Um, that's kind of fallen out of favor with most other cultures, I guess, but they still talk about it in that way. And it's funny you mentioned Aramaic. I've been like digging into Hopi Navajo connections to Polynesians and the Old World. When I say Old World, I'm talking Middle East, Africa, Europe. Like, are there connections? And Barry Fell, the author and professor, Harvard professor I mentioned earlier, he was big on this too. And I was watching The Chosen the other day with my wife, and Jesus kept referring to his mother Mary as Ima.
Hmm.
And I know that in Navajo, the word mom is not Ima, it's Nehima, but it's pretty close. Like you can see an etymological connection there. And father is Abba, but in Navajo, father is Ata. And T's and B's are often transposed, used interchangeably in multiple languages, like a W and a V, or a G and a um, D in Cherokee. They're often transposed, like it means the same thing. I just think it's fascinating how different words kind of float between disparate, far off cultures. Like, is there a link there somehow that goes way, way back that we just don't even know about right now? It's fascinating to me.
Yeah. So this is one of the websites that I like to use when I'm having online discussions because this is very easy to go look up. It's BibleHub.com. And like I said, when I typed in manna, it brought me to Strong Concordance number 3131. You can see it says manna right there on the top.
Yeah.
And you see manna, i.e., man, an edible gum. And then right here, see Hebrew, man.
Hmm.
And then it gives you, the how does it look? in a different form. So you got the Greek right here is right here.
Yeah.
So this part right here is what means manna. I'm assuming because it's highlighted. And you see the manna. So look, if you substitute ate the man in the wilderness, fathers did eat man in the desert. Of us, the man ate in.
Wow.
Ate the
Interesting.
man in the yeah, and it just tells you different ones, some of the hidden man, and I will give.
Hmm.
But see, this is the question. If this is already a known thing, right? If we know the Strong Concordance says man, how do we explain that that's not anything other than
Well, I
human?
wonder if I have a cultural study Bible, and I'm not going to flip through it right now. I have it right here, actually. And I wonder if it's an allegory, like because Christ is the Son of Man, who's also the bread of life. And is it like saying that God provided man to eat, but it's not being literal, it's being figuratively or symbolic in some way? I'm wondering if that's the key. And I'm not a Bible scholar by no means. And I don't understand the differences between the languages any more than just what I read online, honestly. Um, but I wonder if that's what it's talking about. But I don't really know.
But see, that's like part of my question because
Because
when
like
you
when I
brought
read
it up,
Exodus, it talked about them waking up in the morning and manna was on the bushes. And they could go over and pick it. It was soft and they would eat it and it was nourishing. I mean, was that like God saying, "Here's pieces of me"? But
but
when we
you see,
saw
this
God
is
the
the thing.
Father in the Torah, he wasn't a man. He was the creator, the spirit, the Elohim. But we know Jesus Christ was in the beginning because he said the word was in the beginning and I'm the word. So maybe it was him, maybe it was a foreshadowing to the Son of Man, God giving him a piece of himself for the children of Israel to eat. I don't
You know,
know. I'm
you
just
just you just you
spitballing.
just you gave me something to think about. You said the word bush. What is the bush allegorically known as in the Bible? Fire, right? The
Right,
burning
right.
bush. So the manna was on the fire and it
Mm,
was tender.
yep, yep.
So is it see and I just thought about that because of what you said.
And the
Um
consistency of it was such that it served as both food and water because
yeah.
it contained water. If I remember correctly in my study Bible, it talked about how the manna actually, when they picked it, it was soft and moist and nourishing. And it was everywhere.
Yeah, I never seen a human being be cooked before, of course,
Mm,
but I've definitely seen steaks be cooked. And I mean, if you know how to cook it right, it can be what we would consider juicy
yep. Oh,
and
absolutely.
very tender if you know how to cook it right.
You take any old tough piece of meat and you soak it in brine water before you cook it, it'll soften right on up.
And that's what you would do most of the time overnight with any type of meat,
Take a
especially.
stale French roll that's 2 days old, cut it in half, put a wet paper towel over top of it. When you put it in the microwave, it'll soften right up.
But yeah, that was just something that I just found interesting because you talked about how words can mean different things. And I always bring that up because that's the most easiest explanation. Like, how can you explain that to me other than it being human? And when you
Yeah, I
said
think
the bush, I'm thinking as the bush is being fire because that's what it's also known as.
right. Yeah, and I think we got onto this topic from the original question of, or the original thought of, were all Native Americans peaceful? And
Yep.
I would just answer that simply as saying, take out Native American, insert any people group of today,
Yep.
and say, are all Koreans peaceful? Are
That's
all
and I'm glad you said that.
are all South Bronx Italians
Mm.
peaceful? Are all African Americans from Thomasville, North Carolina peaceful? Like, come on, man.
No, it makes sense because I'm glad you said that because a lot of people would say that, and I'm just like, well, name a group of people that have been peaceful. I
Exactly.
mean, are we forgetting our own history here in America? I mean,
Right.
we had hundreds of years of treating people bad, and we're still treating people bad on a certain level that people don't even understand why it's still happening.
I
My
mean,
point is just, I think of it like this because the reason why I brought it up was because many reasons. Because one, I like to talk to people who are affected by certain guidelines, and one of it was NAGPRA. I'm like you. I believe the information should be given to all of us. I really do, but that doesn't. But that's my privileged right. That's what I think I should. There's no different than me walking in your house right now and saying, "Hey, let me go see your photo albums. Let me
Right.
see all your family heirlooms."
Are you coming
You
in
know what
my
I
house saying, "Hey, I need that regalia you have that you're going to be wearing in powwow
mean?
2 weeks from now, but I need it now because my university told me I need to do this study." Like,
Yeah,
man, you're going to see a very non-peaceful Indian if you don't get out of my house.
but that's what I'm saying, and because a lot of Native Americans lost their land, that it was actually taken from them, and this is in the records. We know what land was taken from them, and
Yeah.
we know what was happened. Um, I understand, and then a lot of times, you know, with the artifacts, when you go to these museums, you pay a certain amount of money, and the federal government makes money off of it. But they're making money off of somebody else's history,
Yeah.
right?
True.
And I used to, and I also wonder, why don't the federal government set guidelines to the individuals? Okay, we'll give these artifacts back. Of course, I mean they're yours, but you have to open up a museum and take care of them just as well because it's a right for everybody. Like there should be a happy medium for that, and I don't know if that's going to happen or if it's in the process or happening or whatnot. But I feel like as far as with the artifacts and people can't understand your pain until you tell them your history, right? And
Yeah.
I know that the history books tell a certain type of history, but how many Native Americans are out there actually going around doing history, except when it's only through a ceremonial event or something like that? Why aren't you doing something like podcasting? And I know there are people out there podcasting and stuff like that, but why isn't there more emphasis on it? You know what I'm saying?
Well, this is the very first history book ever about the Coharie Tribe. I
Okay.
researched, I tried to find a Coharie history book. I could not.
Mm.
I'm like, I can't believe no one's ever wrote a history book. I mean, you go to our tribe's website, they have a history out there, and I include it in here, word for word. With their permission, I put it in the book. So you can see
Mm.
exactly what the tribal council says their history is. And then I expound upon it through my research.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's probably other tribes. There's got to be other tribes out there. There's like 540 tribes, I think, in the United States. Federal recognized, state recognized. So surely there's other tribes who no one's ever just taken the time to sit down and write a history book. And in the very front of the book, I kind of use the Lakota Sioux tradition. I'm not 50 years old yet. I turned 50 in December, but they have a tradition where if you speak before the elders and you're not considered an elder, which 50 is the magic number, then you're supposed to apologize to those elders for speaking before them. And so I do that in my book. I apologize because I feel like I'm speaking for people whose voices have already been silenced forever. And I mean, that's just sad to think about. I wish I had just been, I don't know, devoted enough and disciplined enough to have sat down 2 decades ago and wrote this, before a lot of those people passed on.
Yeah, I have this map right here. I don't know if you're familiar with it. I just pulled it up. It's basically
I
a
love
map
maps.
of
I'm a geography major.
all the. Oh, really? So you probably
Yep.
already know about this. It's coming up now. Here we go.
Okay.
Is
Is this
this?
language families?
It's the native digital land.
Oh, it's tribes. Okay. Oh, I've seen this site before.
Yeah, I use this a lot. Um,
It's a pretty slick site.
it tells you a lot about stuff, and you can figure out like. Let's go right here.
See if I
Yeah.
can pull this up a little bit. Wakama Siouan, that's our neighbor tribe. Lumbee, neighbor tribe.
You need me to make it bigger? I can make it bigger. Oh shoot, that's too big.
Yeah.
But yeah,
There's Coharie right there. Above your arrow, go up.
Oh yeah, right here.
There you go. Yeah. And you see, they mentioned the Tuscarora with us, and that's funny because the Coharie were allied with the Tuscarora and the Nusiak for the longest time throughout their history. And then the Tuscarora War happened in 1711, and most of the Tuscarora that weren't killed off, quite frankly, were either sold into slavery or they fled north. So it's interesting that they list the Tuscarora with the Coharie, because I have tons of Tuscarora ancestors in my family tree. I've researched almost 50,000 ancestors in my family tree using ancestry.com, believe it or not. Now, granted,
Oh,
not
wow.
all those are my Native American ancestors. Let's be honest. My mother's European descent, so she has a little bit of Native American in her, but for the most part, she's European. But yeah, I'm related to the Blunt family, which was the
What
last
about
tribe.
African DNA? You have any African DNA?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I have
Where does that come from?
Egypt, Morocco, Nigeria, Southern Bantu, which as far as I can see is right around the Congo, because I have Angolan in me. The Goins family, they're Angolan. They were at Jamestown settlement. Some of the first Africans in Virginia. I'm related to them.
Oh, wow.
And I have, I think it was 3% was Egyptian, 1% Kushite, which would be Sudan, right
Oh,
below
wow.
Egypt, which at one point they were the same. I don't know if you know much about the Kushite
Yeah,
Empire, but those
pushing it.
dudes were
Yeah,
badass, like for real.
yeah,
They didn't
yeah.
play around. And they would, when Egypt would go, and the way I read it was when Egypt would turn from the traditions and the old ways, the Kushites would rise up and take it over. And then they would flip the kingdom back around to get back to the old ways, and then they would leave. They were like the
Yeah,
baddest
it's a back and
archers
forth.
in the history of the world. Like other armies would hire them out for their archers. They would lease out archers. It got some incredible stories, man. I love reading about the Kushites.
Yeah. So that's interesting. So now my next question is, according to your tribe, where do the gods come from, and who is the gods? Like you got, you got. I mean, you
Yeah,
already
one of
know
the
about that. I'm asking.
progenitors of our tribe is a guy named Manteo or
Okay.
Manteo, and he actually went to England twice. Sir Walter Raleigh invited him and Wanchese or Wanchi. Some people call him Wanchis. I say Wanchese. I think that's actually probably right. But they both went to England. Wanchese, upon returning to the States, he didn't like England. He stayed and he ended up starting a war, actually, with the Sikatans. Manteo went back to England and furthered his education of the English language as he was teaching Tom Harriet. I think it was Tom Harriet. His last name was Harriet, teaching him Algonquian languages. So you got this interesting, like more than a dichotomy, really, it's three. You had Algonquian, Siouan, and Iroquoian, the Tuscarora Iroquoian. All three of those languages spoken together in that tight little Eastern North Carolina community. Very unusual. You usually don't see that kind of mixing between the language families. But he was able to teach him Algonquian, which allowed England to further their empire through Virginia. And they called everything Virginia back then. They just assumed everything was Virgin land. It's all Virginia, right? But yeah, in all the notes that Harriet was able to take down from Manteo, we know that they believed in a Elohim, a chief god.
Yeah.
We don't know the name of their chief god, but we can kind of assume some stuff based off the languages of the day. But we knew that they believed in a heaven that they called paradise. They also believed in a hell, and hell was out west over the horizon, and it was a place of heat and fire. And I think it
California,
was called
Arizona.
Paraguso, if I remember correctly. And then they had minor gods. So when they say Elohim, they meant Elohim, El God, Ohim above all others. And they had minor gods. Minor gods would have been like the god of squash, the god of corn, the god of wind, the god of water. Those were minor gods that answered to the chief spirit or the great spirit. And later on, as the Nusiat kind of disappeared or melted away, Coharie came in, the Wakamasuan came to be. They kept the Siouan traditions, and they believe in Wankantonka, which is the great, that translates from Siouan language to the Great Spirit. But yeah, each tribe's a little different. Like the Cherokee, they have Yahuwah, which is like their translated word for Yahweh. But if you're talking about the creator, they use a word totally different that sounds nothing like Yahweh. Ulelenahi means the creator. I know a few others tribes and stuff. I can't remember right now off the top of my head. But like I'll pray in Cherokee sometimes just to do it. I started learning the Cherokee language during the COVID shutdown because I was bored out of my mind, and I wanted to do something cool. And I part of my injuries in the Army, I ended up developing Parkinson's disease. So I do stuff now to try to like keep my cognitive wits about me. So some of that is just looking at languages. Like I'll just read random stuff about languages to like get my brain to work, you know? And so learning Cherokee, that was a big help for me, honestly. And there's a website, the Cherokee Nation out in Oklahoma. They have a cool website. It's Cherokee Word of the Day or is it Word of the Day or Word of the Week? Now I'm telling on myself. But they got cool, like if you go out there the week of Easter, they'll have how to say Happy Easter in Cherokee or how to say Merry Christmas in Cherokee, how to say Happy Mother's Day and all that kind of stuff. It's really cool, man. It's like just a way to kind of challenge my brain, learn something new, get some new neurons to connect, you know?
Yeah, I know what you mean. That's why I like reading a lot of books and reading. I'm definitely going to get your book and I'm going to read it. Of course, I'm going to ask for another discussion because I like to ask questions on stuff that I've
Oh,
read. I do that a
absolutely,
lot
man.
with a lot of
Take a
people.
highlighter to it. Let me know. I'll answer
Yeah.
all the questions.
You know, let me tell you, I actually don't use highlighters. So my books, they look like I use these right here, these
Oh
little
yeah.
tabs.
Yep.
Yeah, this one's almost done. Yeah, I use those tabs instead. And I go through all my books and tab up whatever I find interesting. I actually have on my YouTube, like part of my series on my YouTube channel. I see the tabs on yours too.
Yep.
Yeah, great minds think alike. On my YouTube channel, I have it's called "What I've Learned from Reading This Book,"
Oh,
and
that's cool.
it's basically me taking a book with all those tabs and sharing what I've read from reading that book and what I've learned from reading other books. So it's basically just to jog
That's
my
cool.
memory and then have a dialogue or talk.
Man, you could take
Or
that. I love that because see, stuff like that just kind of happens organically. You could easily take all that and outline it, group affinitize things together that are similar and make a book out of that, man. It'd be so cool, man. Even if it was just like
yeah,
top 100 things I learned or whatever. That's awesome, man. I like that idea.
it's funny you say that because
You're currently writing it?
no, I'm an author also.
Yeah, I
My
noticed it.
book, my book Journey Through the Origins of History. Um, it was basically me just sharing what I've learned. You know, not saying, you know, this is right, this is fact, this is fiction. This is
Yeah.
what I was able to show and provide based off of the facts that I've learned. Like I said, when you brought up the Annie Katani or Katuni, I don't know if I'm saying that correctly.
Any Kutani?
You won't really find anything in Google on that. So you
Mm-mm.
have to use other sources. Like some of it was like, I think like a band or something like that. They had a band that was called that or something like that, and they had something else that wasn't closely related to it. But like I said, I went to JSTOR, and you got to know how to look for. You got to type in the perfect words to search for it because it's not as simple as just typing in certain words that are found
Yeah.
all the time. So you have to actually dig for it. And I was just telling my wife this today. I do read a lot of books and I do share a lot of what I've read in books, but you don't have to read books to be educated. I see you have a lot of books behind you also, and
Yeah.
I like to share books every single day. I like to share all my books in my library, and I haven't even gotten through half of them yet, so I still got to keep doing it. But um, if you know how to do research correctly, the internet is all you really need. Like sacred-text.com is a really good website for all the old materials. You got archive.gov,
Oh
you
yeah,
know.
I use archive.gov to write this book. That was awesome
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
there's so many books now that are out of print, and if you go to archive, man, it's there. It's amazing.
Yeah, and what I like about it is I tell people, if you can't afford books, get you a $60-$50 Kindle. I bought a Kindle Scribe, it's a little bit more expensive. But I started off with a regular Kindle, Paperwhite, I believe that's what it was called at first. If you get you a little Kindle and you go to archive.gov, you can download all those books from archive.gov.
Wow.
All those books, and there's a lot, and there's a lot of books online, like where a lot of websites there's one website that gives out 300,000 books for free. I think it's like forgottenbooks.com or something like.
Oh
I'm not
yeah,
even sure.
yeah,
I'm not sure if it's
yeah. The copy of the
100%
Wallam Olam that I have from the Delaware Indians or the Lenape Indians is how they're called in that book. I got that from forgottenbooks.com. So I
yeah, I
have
think that's
a
what it's
print
called. Yeah,
version of it. Yeah.
that's how I learned about the Sumerian and Chinese writing system being similar. It was through
Oh,
a book from there,
I mean that
because
totally
it's no
makes
longer in
sense.
print. Yeah,
Yeah.
the book was no longer in print, and archive.gov didn't have a copy of it, which was weird, because
Huh.
they usually do.
Yeah.
Or they probably did, and they just didn't have anything where I can download it. Because you can rent books from them too. You just can't put it on a PDF and read it on your Kindle. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you that's the only thing that sucks. So I found that book, and I got it from, I think I got it from Amazon, if I'm not mistaken.
The
But
only thing I've done so far with Kindle by way of getting free stuff is I signed up for bookbub.com, their little newsletter, and a lot of times authors will make their $2.99 book on Kindle, they'll make it free on the BookBub website. So I got free
mhm.
books from there like crazy. I probably got 4 or 5 dozen books on my Kindle I ain't even opened up yet, just because I got them for free. I'll eventually get around to reading them.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, I like to read. So one of the things that I want to do, well, what I want to do is I want to read your book, of course. Um, I, I was just telling myself today that all I do is really read. Like I used to play video games a lot, and I stopped kind of playing games, and I started picking up reading. But I'm starting to forget that all this is a hobby for me, and I don't
Yeah.
want to turn it into a job or work or anything like that, because I do spend a lot of time doing this stuff. I like I said, I go out to. I'm retired because I was in the military. Also, I was wounded in Afghanistan, and I was forced to retire. And when I got out, I have Parkinson's disease too.
Oh,
I was diagnosed with it because of my tremors, because my
yeah.
hand shakes and shit like that. And uh,
I don't know if
also
you can
have,
tell on the camera, but I've had the DBS surgery. I got my trenches right there.
damn,
So
I
University
get
of Florida cracked my head open 3 times.
yeah, I get 36 shots of Botox shots
I used to
every
get
three
that too.
months.
That's one thing. DBS DBS had a lot of good stuff, but there was some stuff that I wasn't expecting. So I guess you take the good with the bad, but I don't have
Yeah.
to get Botox injections anymore. I might need to again soon, but uh, my meds came way down, like way down.
Mm.
I was taking a ton of meds, and that's been huge. So I have to like watch my diet and try to eat around my meds all the time. That was just getting annoying, and I was still having off time, even though I was taking meds. It's like, why am I taking these meds if I'm still off all the time? They're like, yeah, it's time for you to have surgery. Like, there's just nothing else the meds are going to do for you. So yeah, I'm about to retire in December. It's time, man. I've put up a good fight. When I got diagnosed, I said I want to work 10 more years, and then we'll talk. And I've worked 11 years, so I think I did my part.
Yeah.
And the civilian
Well, you
world.
served both in the Army and the Air Force, man. That's crazy. That's I've heard and seen people serve in different services. Of
Yeah.
course,
Yeah, once you do that
that's not
initial 8,
something
you
that.
can transfer to any of the branches. Like my supervisor at the air base, he was a former Marine, and the
Oh,
guy who taught all of our weapons classes for the M4, he was a Marine first, got out, joined the Army National Guard, got out of that after Iraq, and then came into the Air Guard with me. So
yeah.
I was a
When I was
guardsman in the Air Force.
Yeah, when I was in, it was always the rumor was that if you was in any other branch, you couldn't join the Air Force because they were very particular about their people, which they still are,
They still
right?
are.
I mean, you have to be top notch to be able to go from
Yeah,
Army to
they
Marines to
relaxed
Navy
some of
to,
the enlistment stuff because at the time we were fighting 2 wars. They had to. I mean, they just needed
yeah,
maintainers. To be quite honest with you, I was told my whole life, "Oh, you can't be in the Air Force. You're colorblind." Well, guess what? Aluminum is silver. That's the only color you need to know if you're an aircraft metals technologist. So I went
Mhm.
in as a machinist, and you don't have to see colors to be a machinist. So that's how I got in the Air Force as prior service. But yeah, my unit was actually my fighter wing was actually in Afghanistan when I joined. So yeah, it was a different time, man. When we were fighting in both Afghanistan and Iraq, and my
yeah,
fighter wing was the last fighter wing out of Iraq. They were the first one into Iraq and the first one out, or the last one out of Iraq. It just worked out that way where their rotation came up both times. Well, they went into Iraq first because the nature of our mission. They were told, they were mobilized to go to Iraq, but they knew a rotation was coming up, and just so happened we left Iraq when the rotation was up.
Yeah. I remember those days, bro. I was over there. I was in Iraq twice and Afghanistan twice.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
Do you
it's
know
crazy.
what caused your? Did you have a head trauma while you were in Iraq, or a
Uh,
blast trauma?
yeah, I got blown up. I got hit by a 107 Mike rocket. I
Oof,
think.
damn,
I think that's what it was called. Yeah, and
that's anti-pretty.
yeah. So I went through that. I was actually technically dead for about, they say 30 seconds, but I mean that's give or take. You know, people always say 30.
Wow.
Everything's 30 seconds in the military. You know.
Yeah.
But I was actually my unit's first medevac, and I was in the medevac unit.
Oh,
I was
okay.
attached to it. I was attached to a medevac unit, and I was actually their first medevac. So yeah, I went through those things, and that's why I said, you know, for me, it's what led me on this journey. And
Yeah.
I was just thinking, like, you know, after I wrote my one book and I became the bestseller from that book, and I've been,
It's
you know,
awesome.
doing YouTubes and, you know, videos and stuff like that. I always did this just because I just felt like I just had a lot of stuff in my mind that I knew, that I felt like people would always say, well, I want to know what, you know, people will ask questions like, one of the questions that I see a lot is the Anunnaki in that bag that they're holding, right?
Yeah.
And
Right.
I read a book from Maximilien de Lafayette, and he gives a perfect explanation of what it is basically, right? Bags is just basically thinking of you, and we talked about this about avoiding a flood where you pack up your things and leave. So you're going to take your fertilizer, your seed, your food, your water, your medicine, your herbs, and you're all in those. That's what the bag
It's a
represented,
go
was
bag, brother.
basically, yeah, basically that's basically what it was, a go bag. And so like just for me, like just learning about the history and understanding what, you know, the symbolic pictographic script says and stuff like that, it's fun to me. This is something that's actually fun to me. Like I said, I like to play video games. I have my own whole little setup right here, you know, of everything that I like to do. And it's more of, and I say this a lot also, it's more of is I want to keep my name alive. Everybody wants to keep their name alive, right? Everybody wants to
Yep.
be remembered for something, right? And and it's not just to the world, is to so my kids understand our history. I don't know too much about my family's history. I don't know too much. You know, my mom and my dad, they don't really talk about what they, you know, what they want to do, and they just did the basic, simple life of, you know, having kids and living, you know, the basic cookie cutter type lifestyle. You know, house, cars, this, that, blah, blah, blah. And but they never went out there and grabbed their and did their passions. Like, I don't know what my mom's favorite hobby is. I don't know what my dad's favorite hobby is, right? But I have a hobby of history, and I'm good at remembering what it is, or at least semi remembering what it is that I have, because I keep a lot of notes. If I could
Did
remember it
someone
all without.
did someone inspire you for your love of history?
No, it's just because I was just mixed. You know, my father's African American and my mom is German and
Okay.
Turkish.
Okay.
And
I'm Turkish
my
too.
dad, yeah, pops used to say that we that there's a little Native American in us. Well, I never knew 100%, but before I wrote my book, what I wanted to do was, because I wanted to know so much. I wanted to know some of the hardest questions out there. You know, like, where did we
Yeah.
come from? Where did people originate come from? Um, how did the white skin come about, right? And stuff like that, because my mom is white and my dad's black. If people say that everybody started in Africa, then of course that means everybody's black. But then what about the Neanderthals? You know, because
Yeah.
you can
And
find
what about,
Neanderthal.
like, how do we know that for sure? That's my whole thing,
Yeah,
because even mummies, their skin color changes. The best mummies that Egypt had, like, you don't really know, or do you?
yeah,
I mean, how do you know you don't know? You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Like, how do we
and
know
that's
it
part.
didn't change while it was in the tomb?
You know, and that's a good question. A lot of things. can make it change, and that's why I wanted, and I went and did my little DNA test. I even put it in the front of my book of exactly what I am. Like, I don't have a dog in this fight. I don't care, who's really on this planet first, or who's this or who's that. I just want to know what the actual text says, so that way I can be more educated on it. Because, and then I guess that's kind of backwards. What I said was contradicting, saying that I don't care who it was first, because I do care who it was first, because the argument is, there's always arguments about who it is. So I want to know whose argument is the most accurate, I guess you could say. Right.
Yeah.
And I want to know how they can prove it. The same thing with religion. How do you prove that there's a God? Everybody has their own relationship with God. So how do you know that everybody's God is the same? And then you also, you talked about the Elohim. I talked to Jeff Brenner. Jeff Brenner's a Hebrew scholar who translates the ancient Hebrew texts and stuff like that.
Cool.
And I talked to him about the Elohim and stuff. And, there's always what we know as the major deities and minor deities. But
yeah, that's what the Siouan believed.
Yeah, right. And even though the text says that God created us, it's not just a single God that created us, right? Because when I read the Sumerians, it was like 3 or 4, depending on the text. And then when you read some of the Native American texts, correct me if I'm wrong, there's more than one God and goddess that's helping with the creation of humans.
Yeah, it depends on who you ask. Like, some will have, like, it'll be a man and a spider, like Grandma Spider. Some will have, it'll be the grandmother Earth and Father Sky, or it'll be the sky is your grandmother and Earth is a turtle spirit or something. Like, it just depends, right? Like, that's how I think. Like, I think maybe each culture gets like a piece or more pieces than others, maybe. And it's just a matter of what is your piece or pieces and how do you interpret it. Like, everybody's got like a little bit of it, maybe. I've always kind of felt that way. And then I get into doing my own genealogy and my own DNA research and find out that I've got Turkish blood, Jewish blood, Middle Eastern blood from Iran and Lebanon. I've got North Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, Native American, from all over the place, like literally all over the place. I had DNA markers that matched Beringia, like the first Native Americans that came over from Siberia. I matched to the Anzac site, the Clovis site. I matched to Kennewick man. Like, it's wild, man. I got deep into my research, and then I just see it in my family tree. I got people from all over the world. Like, I'm like ambassador to the world, just one person, And that's a beautiful thing, because in the Siouan tradition, we have a phrase, Matakuye Oyasin, and that means all my relations, or we are all related. And we are. I can see that in my family tree, man. We're all related. I tell people all the time, they'll be like, oh, I'm not related to anybody famous. I'm like, yes, you are. We're all related to famous people. We just are. There's no way around it. Because there's only so many people in the world, so many pairs of people in the world that could have made us. You go back far enough. I mean, I have some crazy coincidences in my family tree. If I can just take us on a little tangent here. I joke with people all the time. I'm probably the only person who's related to Michael Jackson and Stonewall Jackson. How crazy is that?
For real?
But I think everybody's got those stories. They just don't know about it. And my family tree is so like beautiful, because not only do I have the Native American tribes that I have from my father, but his Native American tribes were blended tribes anyway, and composite tribes. In other words, a composite tribe is a tribe that brings people in from other tribes to make a bigger tribe. You got the Lumbee in North Carolina, the Wassamasaw tribe of Varnatown Indians in South Carolina. That both of those tribes pulled from the Charal, the Catawba, the Waccamaw-Siouan, the Coharie, the Santee. They pulled from all these different tribes to make these larger composite tribes. And then within those tribes, you got where they intermarried and had kids with the English and the Scottish and the Scots-Irish and African Americans and African Americans from different time periods that over here in the States. There were free persons of color African Americans that they interbred with. And then, of course, there were runaway slaves that they interbred with. And I mean, it's just a kaleidoscope of colors, if you want to look at it that way. but just the sheer amount of nationalities represented in each of us. And you would think, okay, so that's my dad's side of the family. That's cool. I could expect that maybe. But then you look at my mom's side of the family, I'm thinking, oh, she's just, simple white girl from Europe. Where in Europe, I don't know until I do my genealogy. And then I find out she's from all over Europe. And I find out that her mother was from a Melungeon community in the mountains of Tennessee and Virginia. And the Melungeons, they have connections to Turkey and Hebrews and North Africans and African Americans and Native Americans. They're all mixed up too. It's just they had way more European blood than the other represented groups.
Man, that's interesting. What service did you use for your genealogy?
I used ancestry.com to build up my family tree. I found it to be the easiest. I started with
23andMe.
No, for the family tree, I started with GeniaNet, I believe, but it was kind of difficult, to be honest with you. Ancestry just makes it so easy to build a tree and to look at hints and census data, and they make it really easy for you. DNA test, I got a free DNA test. That's how I got started on DNA. I started genealogy first. My first DNA test was through the Michael J. Fox Foundation for my Parkinson's. They were doing a study, and they were using 23andMe, and Indiana University was doing genetic studies about Parkinson's. And at that time, it was only 3 genes that they were testing. I don't know if you ever had any genetic studies done for your diagnosis or not. But then right before I left Florida, because I moved to Florida for my DBS surgeries, I lived down there for 5 years. That last year I was there at the University of Florida, called me back in for another clinical study to do more genetics testing. I forget the name of the company they went through for their DNA test, but they tested for 27 genes. They're up to 27 genes now they can test. They still all came back negative. So my Parkinson's was a result of the 2 traumatic brain injuries I had in the Army, all the crap I got into in the Middle East with all the chemicals and UXO and all that mess, pesticides and herbicides.
So you was there in 2003 and 2004 then?
I was over in Saudi and Kuwait in 90. I went over there after Khobar Towers. So that was 97, 98. Am I saying that right? I got a thing on. Yes, 97, 98. I was over there. I'm looking at my wall. I got my awards hanging up over there.
No, that's pretty interesting. Yeah, when I was in the, if I could have started over and did what I do now, when I was much younger, there's no telling, how much information I would have inside my head. But at the end of the day, what's the purpose of all this? Is sometimes I ask myself, like, why do I care about going online and sharing what I've learned? Why do I care about creating a video? And I think about that sometimes, and I say to myself, because, and I think about it a lot, that history to me is very important. I don't know much about my own family history. So the history that I know of where I grew up at or where I'm visiting is fun to me. And just to know how much, because, the question is how did we come to where we're at today? And to really understand that, you have to go and look at what people went through.
Yeah.
Like, people really lived simple, having a computer, computers, laptops, Kindles, digitals, all this stuff out there that keeps our minds occupied is it's crazy, because today some people can't leave their phones alone for even an hour. Like they it's almost like they start getting, fiending for their phones. Yeah, withdrawals, right? Yeah. And but back then they had a lot of time to look at the sky. They had a lot of time to tell the story over and over again. I think of it like how some of my favorite movies, I know exactly what's going to happen in my favorite movie because I watched it so many times. Now, if I didn't have that and I was, always with nature, that story that I liked the most would probably be told by me more by over and over again, right? Especially if I'm always hunting and gathering. I mean, I go fishing. I don't know about you, but you sit around more in quiet than doing anything when. So
for sure.
I just take a lot of time just to research. Like I just recently bought another PC game, so I'm gonna be playing some games again. because I do have to unload my mind. It does get very, very, very exhausting sometimes trying to remember this stuff and trying to put it out there. It does get very exhausting, but I really do enjoy it. And the problem that I have the most with it is that there are a lot of people who say they want the information, but when they're given it, they're like, they don't want to believe it, even though when you can give them the source to help them better understand.
Yeah. My wife and I, we recently, you talking about fishing and most of your time is spent quiet. We just recently got some beehives. We're beekeepers now. And it's just fascinating, man, to watch honeybees, how they work, how they move, how they react to other honeybees, how they react to me, like how they react to conditions in the environment around them. Like it's just, they're incredible creatures, man. And that's like my new big thing. My wife's like a beekeeping expert, dude. She just watches beekeeping videos all day long. When she's not at work, she's watching beekeeping videos for real. And I mean, we care about these daggone bees like they're our twins or something, like for real. But it's cool because it kind of puts it. I just think that like my ancestors would be proud of that. You know, like I'm back in touch with nature. I'm back in touch with Mother Earth. You know, like
that's one of the reasons why I picked up
doing,
photography.
Man. What's that?
That's one of the reasons why I picked up photography, because it helps me see. I'm trying to get the perfect picture. I'm looking, I'm really looking, and really analyzing what I see and how can I get that and bring it back and remember that. Yeah, I know what you mean.
I'll send you a picture that I saved in my phone. It was I think it was a National Geographic Picture of the Year last year. It was a picture someone took of honeybees. It's pretty awesome. I'll send it to you since you like photography.
Right on. I appreciate that. Well, we're almost at an hour and 30 minutes. It was actually this is actually a good prelude to our next discussion because, like I said, I'm going to read your book, and I'm going to tab up everything that I find interesting. That would be a better dialogue and understanding. But I like to introduce people to the world of some of the authors that are out there, because as an author myself, promoting your book is really hard. You know, people think that when you write a book, you automatically become rich. No, that's not the case at all. And it really takes a lot for us to promote. So as a fellow author, I like to promote authors out there. So I like for you to promote your book again. Please show the world. I'm actually going to, I put all the links in this video when it's loaded up and stuff like that.
Cool.
But yeah, share them your books real quick.
Yeah. Okay. So my most recent book is The History of the Coharie Tribe.
That's the one I'm going to get.
Right now, this book, you can only get the paperback through the publisher, bookbaby.com. So bookbaby.com, you can get the paperback, or you can get the ebook on any site. Amazon for Kindle, Barnes & Noble for Nook, Apple, Google Play Store. You can get the ebook pretty much anywhere. That's my fifth book, the one that just came out. And the paperback will be available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble in about 2 weeks. You have to check back if you want to buy the paperback from them. This is my first book, The Demagogue Wars. This is the one that won Sci-Fi Book of the Year. You see the 4 horsemen there on the front cover. Sickle and hammer. This is the Empire of China flag in the background. And that's an actual taken from an actual flag. If you just watch the Chinese military parade that was just on the other day, you will see a version of this flag. It does not have the yellow line or the blue line. I added those. In the story, the Empire of Japan uses this flag because what it shows is that China is now global and they cross all the oceans. That's what the blue line means. And the yellow line is for the People's Liberation Army conquering the world. Yep. The back of this book, what if 2020 not only continued for 50 to 100 years, but actually got worse? COVID-19 continually evolves and mutates, and it is not eradicated for several decades, which leads to a vastly different America. Politics devolves into tribalism, misinformation, and censorship reigns supreme. Identity politics via outsider social engineering goes unchecked, and socialism sweeps the Americas, Europe, and Africa. Technology plays a huge role in daily life due to the emergence of tech trans sapient cybernetic technology. In this book, there are no cell phones. The cell phones are in your head. It's implanted. There's all kinds of crazy stuff in here, man. I get into quantum warfare. I get into all kinds of wild stuff in this book. But yeah, I've had good results with that book. It won Sci-Fi Book of the Year in the United Kingdom for the Feed My Reads blog. So I'm pretty happy about that. This book is my second book, Adam and Eve's Ashes, and the subtitle is Magnetic Pole Shift, Ancient Prophecy, and Catastrophism. There you see my pen name. You can find all my books under C. Elmon Meade. C for Chris. So this is a really cool book. And then the next two books are daily devotionals. This one is Carpenter's 2x4s. I attend a men's group every morning, even now. The group was at my church in Jacksonville, Florida. And now I join these guys by Zoom every day. And I got that idea from them because someone said they read a verse and they're like, man, that hits me upside the head like a 2x4. And so I'm like, let me look up all the chapter 2 verses 4s in the Bible and just start flipping through them and see if they're, and I found like some amazing verses by just doing that, looking at the chapter 2, verse 4 in all the books. And I write, this is kind of biographical, really. I use stories from my own past, my own history to help talk about the verses and what it's trying to convey. Yeah. And so I get a little personal and it's a little biographical, but I've had people like it a lot. So this one's more of a traditional book study, case study devotional, the other 316s. So this is a 43-day daily devotional. And basically it's the same premise, only instead of John 3:16, I'm talking about all the other 3:16s. And the format is verse, and then the commentary to explain the verse, and then a quote from a famous person in Christian faith, like Corrie ten Boom, St. Augustine, Reverend Billy Graham, Paul Washer. I've got all those kinds of folks with quotes in here. Some of the quotes are just amazing. I really like that addition to the daily devotional. If I was to go back and redo this one, I would add the quotes because I think it's a good touch. And to be honest, I just helped me do some of the writing because I didn't have to write the quotes or come up with quotes. They did it for me.
All right. Yeah, that's perfect. I appreciate it.